Chapter 11. The Light in the Dark. The nights belonged to Red now. When the house was asleep, when Anna's soft breaths filled the air and the distant crash of waves against the shore was the only thing keeping her company, she searched. She read. She took notes, but mostly she worried. Thomas was still him, still strong, still solid, still the man she fell in love with. But something was wrong. It started subtly. Pauses too long to be normal, like his mind had slipped into some unseen place and taken too long to return. At first, it was easy to brush off. Long hours at work, stress, maybe even some kind of sleep issue. But then the episodes grew longer, stranger, and then came the animals. The second time it happened, Thomas was with Red and Anna, walking downtown near the marina. It was late afternoon, and the sky burned with the last embers of the day, reflecting off the water in rippling gold and fire. The scent of sea salt and fried food clung to the breeze, mixing with the sounds of laughter, seagulls, and the occasional honk from a passing boat. Anna was mid-story. Something about how actually dinosaurs totally still existed, and she should know because she saw a picture of a chicken and it definitely looked like a raptor. Then Thomas stopped, mid-stride, mid-thought. Red almost walked into him. "Thomas?" she asked, lightly touching his arm. Nothing. His body was unnaturally still, chest barely rising, gaze fixed on something far beyond the world around him. But Red's stomach clenched for a different reason, because the seagulls had gone silent. The marina was usually loud, birds calling, flapping, diving for scraps. But now every single gull had landed, perched, and they were staring, not at the ocean, not at the setting sun, at Thomas, lined up along the railings dotting the pier, scattered along boats, even balanced on lampposts. 100 white heads tilted in unnatural synchronicity, unblinking black eyes locked on him, like they saw something no one else could. Anna tugged on his hand. "Daddy?" The spell broke. Thomas exhaled sharply like he'd just been held underwater. He blinked down at Anna, then at Red, who forced herself to keep her expression neutral. "You okay?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yeah, just tired." Anna huffed. "You gotta stop doing that. It's weird, Daddy." Thomas laughed softly, ruffling her hair. "I'll work on it." Red looked past him, back toward the seagulls, but they were already moving, taking flight, calling out, scattering like nothing had happened. A few days later, it was the deer. Thomas had taken the back roads home after a long day, winding through the thick stretch of woods that separated the highway from their neighborhood. The sun had set, leaving only the bruised remains of daylight bleeding into the treetops. His truck rumbled over the old asphalt, headlights cutting through the dark. And then he wasn't driving anymore. A blink, a breath, and he was parked, on the side of the road. He didn't remember pulling over, didn't remember slowing down. His hands were still gripping the wheel, his foot still resting against the brake like he'd stopped for a reason. His mouth was dry. He turned his head. The deer stood in the trees, just beyond the reach of his headlights. Not grazing, not moving, watching. There were at least a dozen of them, their pale eyes glowing in the darkness, bodies still as stone. Thomas swallowed hard. Then the largest buck, a massive thing with a rack like tree branches, tilted its head. Not in curiosity, in recognition. Thomas's pulse pounded in his throat. He shifted the truck into drive, forcing himself to look away, forcing himself to move. When he glanced back in the mirror, the deer were already gone. By the time the 7th day came, Red had stopped pretending things were fine. Thomas wasn't just blanking out. Something was looking back, and she was afraid. That night, Thomas came home exhausted but smiling, and, as always, Anna was waiting for him. "Daddy!" He barely had time to set his things down before she launched herself at him. He caught her easily, lifting her high before pulling her in tight, squeezing her like he could keep the world from taking him away. Red saw the way his fingers gripped her little back, the way he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all day. Then, "Daddy, you stink," Anna declared, scrunching her nose. Thomas huffed a laugh. "Oh, yeah?" "Yeah," she said, hands on her hips, the very picture of a tiny authority figure. "Go shower, now, mister," Red chuckled. "You heard the boss." Thomas smirked. "Yes, ma'am." And then he was gone. Red didn't think about it at first. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Her stomach twisted. Anna frowned. "He's taking forever." Before Red could stop her, Anna was already halfway down the hall. And then she paused. Something shifted. Red watched as her daughter tilted her head, eyes sharp with that same knowing curiosity. Thomas stood in the bathroom doorway, completely still, water still dripping from his hair, a towel loose around his waist. Blank. Anna took another step, then another. Red's heart pounded. And then she reached up and touched his hand. The second her tiny fingers made contact, Thomas sucked in a breath. His whole body jerked like he'd been shocked, eyes snapping to hers. Anna smiled up at him, completely unfazed. "Daddy, you okay?" Thomas blinked. His hands trembled as he knelt down, gripping her shoulders gently. "Yeah, baby, I'm okay." Anna studied him, her little hands coming up to his cheeks. She pressed them there, warm and steady. And then, with all the weight of a child as innocence and a question that sent ice through Thomas' veins, she asked, "Daddy, why do you keep going to the mountain?" Silence. A beat too long. Anna's head tilted, brow furrowed in confusion. "You stay here. What's over there that we don't have? Honestly, Daddy, I just don't get it, mister." She grinned at him, expecting an answer. Thomas couldn't speak, because he didn't know what pulled at him, what waited for him, what had never really left. But Anna saw it, and that scared him more than anything.